Hello folks and welcome to a special edition of GC360. I'm Sam Jones. Today we are broadcasting a live 30-minute debate featuring the two candidates for State House from District 145. Joining me are the two candidates Floyd Griffin, the Democrat, and Rick Williams, the Republican candidate. Mr. Griffin is a former mayor of Milledgeville and a former state senator. Mr. Williams has served as registrar of Baldwin County for the last 16 years. Before we begin, an explanation of the ground rules that each candidate has agreed to. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer a question, followed by 1 minute each of rebuttal or additional comments. In the final round, each man will have an opportunity to pose a question to the other candidate. We tossed a coin to decide who would answer first, and Mr. Williams, you took round one in that one. You're going to go ahead and answer our first question. So let's go ahead and get started. We begin tonight with health care. The first question concerns Medicaid expansion and financially troubled Oconee Regional Medical Center. Now, Mr. Williams, you said you're in favor of Medicaid expansion and that it would help the hospital, but that would have to be done in a responsible way. What specifically do you mean by a responsible way?
Medicaid expansion was offered to all the states. Georgia did not accept it because it was more or less not mapped out as to what would happen. There was going to be a start date and an end date, and that end date is coming up. There's a lot of states who have gone through financial difficulties and financial times, tough times, and it's been very tough. I don't feel like the Medicare or Medicaid expansion is a hospital's problems. Our hospital's problems relates to jobs. When we had Central State Hospital here and 3,000 employees working for the state of Georgia, they had excellent health care benefits. Baldwin County Hospital, Oconee Regional Medical Center was prosperous at the time. What has happened to our hospital basically is the loss of jobs and the loss of benefits that those employers have had. The legislature had passed a law this past year that allows people to make contributions to a private hospital and lets those contributions be tax deductible. That works for communities of 35,000 or less. Baldwin County falls in the 50,000 population range. So the legislature is going to have to address that this next session and revise that law so that people can make contributions to the hospital and that contribution would be tax deductible.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Mr. Griffin, moving now to you. You said you tirelessly lobby for Medicaid expansion. What hope do you have to get Medicaid expansion through a Republican-controlled legislature?
Well, I don't think that's going to be too difficult now because the Democratic House caucus has indicated that the Republicans are willing to work with the caucus to try to make that happen. Look, we have over 300,000 people in Georgia who do not have insurance. We have people dying every day because they are not getting the health care that they deserve and they need. Therefore, we need to have the Medicaid expansion to allow that to happen. And on top of that, it will help with jobs in our community. Now, this is the bottom line. Why would someone want to come to a business would want to come to Baldwin County? We're talking about an industry. If we have a poor health care system and you aren't going to get the job. So Medicaid expansion will be one of my #1 priorities when I get to the legislature. It will help the failing hospitals. We've had over 5 hospitals in rural Georgia to have to go out of business because they did not have the resources, and part of their resources is from a Medicaid expansion. Now, the reason the Republican and the governor did not pass this is because of the Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and get them back to him. See, we are paying the tax dollars already. It's being taxed. And those dollars are now going to other states when we could be using those dollars here in Georgia. And I think it's a no-brainer. And that is something that we are going to fight very hard for in the next legislative session.
Mr. Williams, a chance to respond?
Yeah. Casino gambling came up this last session, and it's been talked about, and it'll come up again this next session, and it's going to keep coming up. With casino gambling, MGM offered to write the state of Georgia a check for $500 million for 12 years, just to allow them to build a casino in Atlanta, Georgia. This would make Atlanta the #1 convention center in the United States. You can get on a jet anywhere and fly nonstop to Atlanta. If we put a casino in Atlanta, possibly one in Savannah on the coast, then the monies from that would go toward health care and education. That's what needs to happen. We're going to have to be creative and think outside the box. Last year, over 1 million people from Georgia visited Harrah's in Cherokee, North Carolina. People are going to gamble, they're going to go. We might as well capitalize on it here.
Mr. Griffin?
Well, what Rick is talking about is something hypothetical from the standpoint of the casino or the gambling piece. It could or could not happen. We are dealing with a crisis now with the Medicaid expansion, and all we have to do is accept the Medicaid extension, have those dollars coming into the community. I will deal with the casino situation issue when I get in the legislature if it comes up. I'm not going to be the person that's going to introduce that legislation because I think there are too many other important things that I would be dealing with. Now, there's a very good possibility I will support the casino legislation after I determine what's in the language of the bill.
All right, we'll go ahead and move on now to education. This next question will go for Mr. Griffin, of course. Mr. Griffin, you opposed the proposed Constitution Amendment, Georgia Amendment 1, of course, talking about opportunity school districts.
Right.
Moving forward with that, do you support or oppose Amendment 1?
Oh, I oppose Amendment 1 because for a number of reasons. It will hurt our local school system. We do not need to have a superintendent of schools who's appointed by the governor and only works for the governor controlling our school system. There's something that's called local control, and that is something that the Republicans have had on the agenda for a number of years. Now they are trying to pull that away as part of their philosophy. The opportunity school system will take away all of the authority from the local Board of Education. And we will have to continue to fund those schools at a level that state school superintendent will determine who works for the governor. And I do not support it. I don't think it's good for our community. I don't think it's good for our state. And by the way, Louisiana was one of the states that instituted that. And I've been told in the last couple of days that the legislature is appealing that down in Louisiana because it did not work.
Mr. Williams?
I have supported this bill. I have heard the governor speak several times in response to this bill. The governor did prison reform where they were educating prisoners, teaching them career jobs and trades before they were released from prison. 70% of the people that are incarcerated have one thing in common, and that is they were high school dropouts. Something has got to be done. If you look at the list of failing schools that are on the list now, I don't have it with me. Fulton County had about 30 failing schools. DeKalb County had about 20. Atlanta Public Schools had about 20. These schools have failed continuously through the years. The governor's not taking away the money. What the governor is saying is there's something wrong. That child is failing. That child is going through a failing school. That child that goes to that failing school is not going to be admitted to Georgia College and State University. They can't get in. They need the opportunity, just like any of you have, that have gone through schools that were not failing. The governor's position is not to take over those schools and keep control of that school. It's to take that school and get it on a track, to bring it up, to bring the test grades up, and it's to find out the problem. Is it administration? Is it the teachers? Is it just the mix of students? Is it, just exactly what is it? The governor does not want to intend on keeping those schools forever. They want to turn them back over to local control after a certain period of time. And this is for mainly the children that are affected, or poor and underprivileged, that live in the project areas. And why not? Why shouldn't we give them a fighting chance? Education is the key to everything, and we want to give them a fighting chance.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, this doesn't have anything to do with prisons and people in prison. And opportunity, there are failing schools that are in other places than in the projects and in minority areas. Absolutely, the governor is trying to take over the school system of the failing schools. Now, we already have a Department of Education. That's what they are for. We are paying a state school superintendent and his staff and et cetera. What the governor should be doing and his administration is forcing them to carry out their responsibility and don't put all that burden on the local school system. And Mr. Williams is saying, well, the governor is not trying to take any money away. What is he doing? The money is as a taxpayer. He pays taxes to the school system. I pay taxes to the school system. Those taxes will go into the Opportunity School District, and we will not have any control over those. We elect the Board of Education,
Mr.
and
Griffin,
we
I think
should.
the time is up. We're going to move on
Okay.
to Mr. Williams. 1 minute to respond.
My response is that he's not to take them over, but he's to try to put them on a path, to try to help every student. They're failing students, and the schools have generationally failed. They failed the parents, the grandparents, and now they're failing the child. And so something is chronically wrong. My father-in-law was a school superintendent. I spent time with him. I know about some of the education issues and problems. Sometimes the local control, for political reasons, economic reasons, whatever, that school is not getting the attention or the leadership that it needs. The governor's office can make sure that that happens. This is not benefiting the governor. He's looking to benefit children. What is more important than our children, our youth? They're our leaders of tomorrow. We've got to take care of them. We've got to help them get a good education.
Mr. Williams, following up on that, teacher groups such as the Georgia Association of Educators have opposed Amendment 1, and this is kind of a general feeling, it seems, from teachers that they are opposed to this idea of opportunity school districts. Are you saying that politicians know better than the teachers on the subject?
Well, no, not necessarily, but I have spoken to some teachers who, under the threat of retaliation, are keeping quiet, and they're going with the union. They're having to fall in line. So, therefore, what happens when they get into the booth, we'll see. This may not be the best answer, but it's a start. It is something new and it's innovative. Only 2 other states, Tennessee and Louisiana, have adopted this. But it's something that is being tried, and they are attempting to do something. And that's the main thing, that you are having a proactive government.
Mr. Griffin, I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. Louisiana has failed. Tennessee has failed. I have attended several town halls or discussions on the opportunity school system here. Mr. Williams has not. There was a town hall meeting, what's the day, Thursday, Tuesday evening at the First Baptist Church here. He was not there. There were teachers there, the Board of Education, and parents. They are all against this opportunity school system. I don't know of any teacher here in Baldwin County that has been threatened. And let me say this, if there are any teacher out there in Baldwin County who has been threatened by someone, you all come to see Floyd Griffin, and I will help deal with that, because that is not what I'm hearing, and we should vote no on the Opportunity School District.
Well, we'll stay with education, but move on to institutions of higher learning, of course. District 145 boasts 3 of those: Georgia Military College, Central Georgia Technical, and of course, Georgia College, the one we're at right now. What specifically would you do, and this is for Mr. Williams, what would you specifically do to create jobs so that students stay in the region after graduation?
Working with the local government, the county commission, city council, to attract industry here to Baldwin County. We have a unique opportunity. We have one of 6 mega sites in the state located here in Baldwin County that has direct rail access to Savannah. So goods could be manufactured, produced, loaded into train boxcars, and carried directly to Savannah to the port for exporting, of course. Central State Hospital redevelopment this past year, over $60 million has been spent there. The Youth Life, the other groups that have come in, they've created, by the end of the year, they will have created around 500 jobs. So Baldwin County, Milledgeville is growing. We have more opportunity and other people looking to expand the kitchen at Central State Hospital. There's a kitchen out there. Those facilities is the largest in the world. They have more capability of food production than any other location there in the world. And there's a company that is in the process of buying that kitchen, and also one of the adjoining buildings, so they can do the hydroponic fast freeze drying foods, so they can be shipping those overseas and even here throughout the United States. So things are happening. The one thing I want to touch on is the education, the cost of education. What it costs is just, we want to work on that. So there are other details there too.
Mr. Griffin?
Well, I want everyone to know that I've served on the Board of Trustees here at Georgia College and at GMC, and when I was in the Senate on the Higher Education Committee, and will attempt to do the same thing when I go to the House of Representatives. First of all, legislators can't bring jobs into a community. That's not their job, that's not their responsibility. That's why in each community they have an economic development board and executive director. What I would do, I will work with those 2 communities here in Putnam and in Baldwin. I will work with the State Department of Economics and Economic Development and Tourism. And one of the things that I would do after the legislative session, I will conduct a economic development summit and bringing all of those communities together to help determine what their strategic view and outlook for Baldwin and Putnam counties, and then we'll move in that direction. I'm the only person sitting here that have brought jobs into the community and economic development when I was a mayor. I worked when I was a state senator to help bring those into the community. I didn't go and touch and field to bring them in myself, because once again, legislators don't do that.
All right, Mr. Williams, you have 1 minute.
I served as also a county commissioner in the early 90s and served as chairman for 2 years. During that time, we were actively trying to bring jobs into Baldwin County. I have a relationship with the city and the county, and with combined efforts, the governor has endorsed me, Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker of the House, the Secretary of State, and many others, the Republican caucus chair, the floor leader. And with those contacts, we can have the opportunity to make Baldwin County grow. We're at an opportune time with the completion of the Fall Line Freeway, the state highway has now started back widening 441 and Highway 24. So we're going to be right at the crossroads of Georgia, and transportation is about to start coming through. We're going to be better access to the interstates. So transportation has held us back in the past in the lack of transportation.
Mr. Williams, I think your time is up. Mr. Griffin, 1 minute.
Well, Mr. Williams brag about who's endorsed him. That's good. I just want him to I want the people out here to know when the governor came down and endorsed him, he went to a private dinner out on the lake with some of the elites in our community. When the Speaker of the House and some of those other people he spoke to, they came to an airport hangar here and with the elites again. They didn't invite you and I and the rest of the people out on the southern side of Baldwin County and up in Putnam County along MLK, where some of the lower, the working class people live. So I want to just make that clear. When I kicked my campaign off, I kicked my campaign off in a public place and invited everybody to come. Now, the Speaker of the House, the Lieutenant Governor, and I served together in the state Senate. He doesn't have carte blanche on the people in Atlanta that he knows. I know a lot of people in Atlanta and in the legislature and in the business community also. My arms reach deep, and not only in Atlanta, all the way into Washington, D.C., and I will bring all of that to bear.
That's all the time we have for that. Okay. Moving on now, we'll go ahead and...
I'd like to respond to that.
Mr. Williams, go ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Griffin will also get another minute to respond.
That's fine. The home of the elite is people that own chalk mines. The people at the airport hangar own Arcella Manufacturing and Mining. They employ thousands of people here in Middle Georgia. This was not a campaign kickoff. These were fundraisers, F-U-N-D raisers. That's what they were for, was to raise funds for this campaign. And they did, and people were invited. We had a public breakfast that the public was invited to in Putnam County last Monday with the Secretary of State. We ran ads in the paper, we had it on the radio. We had people from Baldwin County, people from Putnam County to attend. And we had a great time. We will do more things. Just because it was at the airport, at a hangar, that this man owns his own airplane, and he employs thousands of people here in Middle Georgia, and he has created jobs. That's how we're going to bring jobs and industry to Milledgeville, Baldwin County, because we have the friends in the right places. But
Mr. Williams, that's your time. Mr. Griffin,
Okay.
1 minute.
I have no problem with the elite, okay? But I also am concerned about those that are not elite. Mr. Williams stated that those were fundraisers and not a kickoff. Yes, they were fundraisers, but they were invitational. The governor is the governor of all of us. When he came in down and endorsed Rick, why didn't he come in a public space, like in front of the courthouse or here at Georgia College, and endorse him? No, he went to a private fundraiser where they are paying $500 and $1,000 for his campaign. I don't have any problem with that. That's part of the political process and part of running for office. But when I get in office, I'm not going to owe those people anything. The person who owns the K-O line and the airport, a hangar, and et cetera. I'm not bought, nor am I bossed. And when I go into the legislature, I'm going to deal with all of those individuals on a level playing field.
Mr. Williams, do you agree with Mr. Griffin's assessment that your association with elites might cause you difficulty to kind of help the lesser people out?
No, and I don't call them elite, I call them friends. My father joined the Army when he was 15 years old because his father died and had 35 cents in his pocket. I come from roots. I put 3 children through college as a single parent. One of them went through Georgia College here and received 2 degrees. I'm not part of the elite. I don't drive a new Jaguar. I drive an 04 Suburban. I'm not part of the elite. But I have friends who create jobs, and I have the contacts with those people. The governor came to endorse me. He told the people he wanted to work with me, the Speaker of the House, the Lieutenant Governor. All I can say is out of 180 representatives in Atlanta, 160 of them are Republicans. So yeah, it's a Republican-controlled House right now. And if we want to get something done, we better send a Republican to Atlanta.
And on top of that, there are some things that you can't get passed without the Democrats, and especially when it takes 2/3 of the votes. Now, let me, you know, he kind of throwing a dig on the fact that I drive a Jaguar. I drive it because I can afford it. I have driven a Mercedes-Benz. Look, I was in the military. I worked hard. I saved money. I retired as a full colonel. I'm a businessman, and I get paid not to work. But
All right,
I
Mr.
work.
Griffin, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We're going to move on to our final round. Mr. Williams, this is going to be for you. You're going to start this off. Remember, we're asking a question to the other candidate that you want answered.
I don't have any question to ask Mr. Griffin. I just would like to say that I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. Mr. Griffin is a fine gentleman, and I've known him for many years. We have a difference of opinion. We have a difference of political philosophy. I'm about bringing jobs to Baldwin County, and I can make things happen. Baldwin and Putnam County is right here. I own business in both counties. I know what it is to make payroll. I know what it is to have to provide health insurance for employees, and I do that. And I've created jobs. I didn't just inherit something, I've actually built business, and I've created jobs.
Mr. Griffin, your chance to speak.
I tell you what, my good friend Rick Williams, sometimes I think he's out in la la land. Look, I inherit my family business, and I'm proud of that because my father worked very hard to get to the point where he had a business to inherit me. And you know, my father and mother helped you a lot when you started your business.
And I helped them.
Yes, that's right. So don't come talking about you. Okay, let me move on. Let me ask you a question. When I met you in 1990, when I came back here, you were a Democrat. And I thought you were a Democrat for a long time. You voted in 04, in 08, 04, and 012 in the Democratic presidential primary. This year, you voted in the Democratic presidential primary 11 days before you qualified as a Republican to run in this district. Now, let me ask you this. Who are you going to vote for? Are you going to vote Democrat, or are you going to vote for the Republican nominees?
I'm going to vote Republican. I'm going to vote for Mr. Trump. I'm going to vote for myself. Matter of fact, I've already voted. Yeah, I've ran as a Democrat. Back years ago, everyone was a Democrat. There was 2 Republicans in Baldwin County, and they lived on the other side of the river. So it's you know, very comical, but that's the thing about it. We live in the United States. I can choose, and I have the freedom to choose anytime I want to. And to quote a great American, Ronald Reagan, I didn't leave the Democratic Party left me.
Well, if that's the case, why didn't you announce that a long time ago? When did you decide to become a Republican? When did you decide to become a Republican? 11 days after you voted for a person in the Democratic primary.
I served as chief registrar for 18 years. I understand voting. Sometimes you go in the voting booth not to vote for someone, but to vote against someone.
All right, we've unfortunately run out of time. That'll wrap up this special debate edition of GC360. This program will re-air every day until next Thursday at noon, 5 p.m. and 9 p.m. We'll also post the program on our website and social media platforms. To the candidates, thank you guys very much for joining us today. I'm Sam Jones. We'll see you again next week on GC360, where news comes full circle. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.